If you're a guitar player, or a bass player too, and you're looking to set up a home recording rig, well, you've got some decisions to make, included in which is your audio interface. Now, guitar players, and bass players too, we have specific requirements that sometimes requires us to purchase additional gear. Now, if you're on a fixed budget, that could be a little bit of a problem. But the good news is IK Multimedia has introduced the little brother to the AX-IO, known as the AX-IO1. Now, this is an entry-level audio interface being introduced at an entry-level price, but it shares some key features with its big brother that's certainly going to make a lot of guitar players and bass players happy. I'm giving the AX-IO1 the turntable treatment today, so why don't you join me? You bass players are welcome too. I actually have a number of audio interfaces here in my studio, and having a YouTube channel, I've had the chance to try all sorts of audio interfaces from a lot of the major brands. But a couple months ago, I got the AX-IO, and I'm using this exclusively to record all of my guitars. And there's two main reasons for that. The first reason is input channel 1. You have this variable input stage selector. You've got JFET or pure, a couple of different options for your input stage. You've got this active and passive switch here, so you can match your pickups. And you've got the Z-tone dial, so you can adjust the impedance, really just to optimize that DI track. Now, the other thing that it has that I use all the time is this, and this is the amp out. Now, when I'm recording DI tracks, I can take the out from here and go into my tube amp, so I can actually monitor my playing through an actual amplifier, so I can dig in, because I'm playing through a real amplifier while recording DI tracks. But this is also part of the reamping feature of this interface, so I can decide later if I want to go with a modeler, if I want to use TONEX, or if I want to go into a real amplifier. So it's a really wonderful option to have on an audio interface. Now, if we take a look at the AX-IO1, now this is a single input version of the AX-IO, but look at this, you've got all of those features that I just talked about, but you also have the amp out here. So this inexpensive entry-level audio interface is going to give you some great input options for recording your guitar and bass. And you've also got built-in reamping. Plus, it comes bundled with Amplitube and TONEX. So right out of the box, you're going to be recording all sorts of great tones. Really good-looking option here. So we're going to dive in, take a look at the features of this interface. I'm going to show you a couple of setups of how you can take full advantage of the AX-IO1. All right, let's jump into that. The AX-IO1 is described as a compact and affordable 1-in and 3-out audio interface. But that description is a bit misleading. The single-channel audio input is loaded with features, and the 3 outputs give you connectivity to your speaker monitors and to your amplifier for reamping and monitoring via the amp out. But the inputs and outputs don't stop there. There is a dedicated headphone output with onboard level control. You also have full MIDI in and out with the standard full-size MIDI connectors. Plus, there are not 1 but 2 inputs for expression pedals or switches for hands-free control of Amplitube and other software, so the AX-IO1 can be a hub for your real-time switching and control functions. The main audio input shares the same features as the big AX-IO interface with your Z-tone control, which lets you adjust the impedance of the input, giving you a range of DI signals from tighter to fatter. The active-passive selector lets you bypass the high impedance input, removing unnecessary gain stages for guitars with active pickups. You also have a switchable preamp stage. JFET adds more mid-range, warmth, and harmonic content, while Pure gives you a transparent input which won't add any color to your signal. You have a 48-volt phantom power button if you want to record with a condenser mic, and indicators that let you know what is connected to the interface. You have a blend knob to monitor your input and your DAW, and the desktop form factor affords the opportunity for a large master volume knob. Around back, you have the aforementioned 2 main outputs, 2 expression controller inputs, and MIDI connectors. And the interface connects to your computer via the USB-C port that is bus powered, so you don't need any additional power, making this interface great for portable recording rigs. And I mustn't forget audio quality. With sample rates up to 192 kHz and a dynamic range of 108 decibels, you get studio quality recordings with the super compact, full-featured interface. So setting up the AX-IO1 is super simple. Now I should say that I am on a Mac, so sorry to you Windows users. I've got an Apple Mac Studio, but USB-C into the computer. By the way, I always recommend hooking up your interface directly to your computer. Now this is really the hub of your studio. You're going to have a lot of in and out, and I do recommend you go directly into your computer if you want to minimize latency and really ensure optimal performance of your interface. Not to say it won't work through a hub or things like that, but I always put my interface directly into the computer just to ensure optimal performance. Now, it was plug and play, at least it was here on my Mac. I didn't have to install any drivers or things like that. But there is the AXI-1 control panel software that gives you access to additional features on your interface, including assigning controllers like expression pedals and switches. So what I want to do now is I want to demonstrate this Z-tone control. By the way, I'm Canadian, we say Z-tone, but we'll call it Z-tone. Now this is an impedance control. In layman's terms, that's going to affect the sonic character of the DI signal before it hits the amplifier. So that DI is going to have a big effect on ultimately what your amplified tone is going to sound like. Now all the way to the left, they note it as sharp. That's going to give you a tighter, sort of brighter sound. And then all the way to the right, they call it bold. That's going to be more rolled off and warmer. Now, I've gone to the extremes on both, and it's really something I recommend you experiment with. For example, on bold, it sounds really muffled, but depending on the pickups you have on your guitar and then the tone that you're using on the specific amplifier, plus you can use some EQ, I came up with some really creamy sounds. So if you have one guitar with one pickup, you're going to get a wide range of tonal options here that ultimately will impact the amplifier that you choose. And the fact that we're recording DI, we can use amp sims or we can use real amplifiers. Now I should mention this interface is being offered below $150 US. I don't go into exact price because that may fluctuate, but being introduced at below $150 US. Plus it comes with TONEX SE and AMPLITUBE SE. Both right now, I looked online, are available for $150 US by themselves each. So that's like $300 of tone shaping software. Plus I think there's also a Lite version of Ableton included. So a sub $150 interface with over $300 worth of software. That's the reason why I say if you're just getting started, looking to have a little home recording studio for guitar and bass, you're going to get great value, and you can have a lot to do with your first audio interface, a lot more than I had when I first started. All right, so I'm going to demonstrate this Z-tone control. I'm going to show you a couple of different tones on guitar and bass. I'll show you the DI signal and ultimately how that affects the amplified tone. One of the things that I like to do when I'm recording is I like the real amp effect. I like feeling that amp in the room because, if you're playing through an amp sim, if you have a powerful enough computer, latency shouldn't be that much of an issue, but there are limitations in doing it DI and then using an amp sim. Anyways, I just like to play through a real amplifier. But one thing I can do with the AXI-1, I actually do it with my AXI-0. Now I have multiple more ins and outs than this has available. For example, you can record a DI monitor through an amp and record it back in. This is a single channel interface, so you can't do that. But I actually don't do that on the big interface because I have trouble chewing gum and reading a book at the same time. But I just like to get my tracks done and then worry about the amp later. It's just one less thing to have to do at the same time. So anyways, you're just going to hear it through the microphone. I'll show you some tones in a second. But I've got the guitar, this SE, going into the input. By the way, this is a combo jack, so it also accepts XLR cables as well. But I've got the instrument patch cord into the input on the front here. And this is DI directly into the computer. So we can just hear. So kind of boring when you're recording. You want to feel something. So like I said, you can throw an amp sim on your track and do it that way. Or we plug into the amp out feature, which you basically take a standard patch cord and then you can plug that into the input of your amplifier. So now I can listen to my real amplifier while I'm recording a DI track. So that's a really efficient way to work. In terms of performance, I can dig in because I can feel the real amp in the room. I can balance the volumes here so I have, you know, optimal volume coming out of my speaker monitors and get, just since I have my amp here in the room, I can set a nice level and I can record, and ultimately what I end up with are DI tracks, and those DI tracks are going to give me a lot of options. Like I said, whether I want to go through amp sims, amp modelers, or come back out to a real amplifier, and I'm going to show you how to do that next. All right, so we've got some DI recorded tracks in the system. Our guitar player has gone off to some bohemian retreat. We don't need him anymore because we've got his DI tracks recorded. Now we have an endless amount of options that we can do now to create some tone. We can use TONEX, we can use Amplitube, you can use your favorite amp sims, whatever you're using to shape guitar tone. You can add it as a plugin in your project, or if you want to go out to a real amplifier, well, the amp out is part of the reamping feature of this interface. And again, I really challenge you to find another interface that's this inexpensive that's going to give you that option from a monitoring standpoint and reamping. So for reamping, it's similar. We don't need a guitar anymore because we've got the tracks recorded, but we take the amp out from the interface that goes into the input on our amplifier. And then we're going to take the output from our amp. Now I record direct, so I'm using a load box in DI. So I'm taking the output of that from the amp head, and I'm coming back into the interface here. If you're recording an amp with a cabinet, you can mic it up and you can plug it into, this is a combo jack, so you can take the XLR cable and go right into the input here. If you're using a condenser microphone, as I mentioned, you have phantom power here, so you do have options. So I'm going to go DI. But now I'll show you how to set it up in the project so we can take that DI, run it through an amp, and then back into our project. Whether you are reamping with a mic'd amp or direct like I am, the remaining steps are quite simple. I use Logic Pro, but the steps should be similar in most DAWs. For demonstration purposes, I've duplicated my DI track and named it to reamp. Make sure you disable or remove any plugins on this track. The amp out on the XIO is output 3, so set the DI track to mono output 3. Create a new track and set it to input 1. Activate the input and arm the track for record. If you get any feedback, you can mute the track. Make sure you're getting a good level back from your amp and hit record. That's it. I recorded my amp head direct, so I added a cab sim plugin. If you mic'd your amp, you can proceed to mix the track. Well, there you have the XIO1. What great value in this interface. If you're just getting started, I mean, just the software bundle alone, the input stage options that I talked about, built-in reamping, you're going to get a ton of value with this interface. You're going to get a lot done. If you're looking to add some portability to your rig, if you've got already the bigger version in your studio, this is a great option to take it on the road. You have the essential features here. And like I said, all the additional software, if you don't have it already, certainly creates a lot of value. But would love to hear your thoughts on this. Certainly hope you enjoyed this video. If you have any questions, if you have any comments, if you want to say anything, that's what the comment section's for. Would love to hear from you. If you want to support this channel, don't forget to like, subscribe, and ring that bell. If you look into the description, I have all sorts of affiliate links, a lot of links to the gear I have here in my studio, plus essentials to help you set up your own studio. I've also got a link to this if you're looking to purchase it. Any clicks on those links and purchases doesn't cost you anything more, but it does kick a little bit back to the studio and helps me bring more content like this to you. So appreciate all the support. I am on Patreon if you want to do a deeper dive with me. I've got merch. It's all in the description. It all helps the channel. And I really appreciate that. But the cheap, free, and easy way to support the channel is just to watch another video. And I've got one waiting for you right here. And remember, you don't need a band to rock and roll. I look forward to seeing you again in another video.